Alright, this is a follow-up to a previous post I did last week on this device. This is Garmin Rear View Radar RVR Model 315. A full detailed review of this is available on DC Rainmaker's site, of course. But what my post was about was this button, and it keeps breaking out right along this thin line where it's integrated into this weather protect strip that wraps around the whole device. Now that strip is, I don't know, maybe TPU or something like that, rubbery stuff, and it just wraps around the edge of this entire case. So I was starting to think about, okay, obviously there's something wrong here. It's just a crappy design. That's obviously what's wrong, because this button has come out twice, and it breaks out right along this little line where it's basically, this is a one piece with that button molded to it. Now the problem is this band here is not that thick. It's about as thick as this toothpick, and it fits flush to this edge of the case, and it overlaps the back edge. In fact, you can see I've actually loosened it. I'm going to have to put some glue in there and put it back in there, but you can see it's not very thick, so it's not very durable. Here, where you get the action, here, no problem, it'll last for fucking ever. But the deal is, you have to press and hold this for 2 seconds to activate the switch and to activate the device and deactivate it. There's no auto turn off. Should there be, that would eliminate this problem altogether. Once you turn it on, after a certain period of time, it just turns off, or when it decouples from the device you pair it to, like your mobile phone or your computer head on your front end of your bike is. So inside here, what's inside here? I can tell you what's inside there. There's a little Bluetooth module right behind here. So there's the plug. It's a mini USB. So there's a Bluetooth module in there. That's about $5. There's going to be 2 different electronics boards in here. One is for the radar itself. Now this is a miniature, and I suspect it's a unidirectional Doppler radar, because it only detects items being cars, boats, trains, elephants, whatever, approaching you from the rear. So it's not going to go off if anything approaches it from this direction. It's just from this direction. It's pointed to the rear. So it's a rear view radar. So there's going to be a radar board in here that has all the transmission and the receptor electronics. Then there's going to be a main board that radar is going to plug into the main board. And then plugging in also to the main board will be probably 2 or 3, maybe just 2, possibly 3 electronic wires. They'll be terminated with a little plastic connector, tiny little thing, and it'll just run from the battery and plug in to the side of the main board in here. Now obviously this has a battery too, so you're charging right there. I'm sorry, I was talking about the Bluetooth module. That's not the Bluetooth, I meant battery. There is a Bluetooth module in here, and that's going to be about this big, tiny little thing. And that'll be on the main board. So you've got 2 electronics circuit boards, one for the radar, plugs into the main board, and a battery in here. Probably the battery is about the same size of this thing. And my guess is, just looking at this, there's a little seam right along here. And I'll bet that this is just a cover piece, and you could probably pry it off. It's just probably glued in place. And the rest of this is just a one-piece case. And then there'll be a battery, the main board, and then a radar board that faces toward this cover piece back. It's not much to it. A little mini radar unit is about $5. Bluetooth module about $5. Those circuit boards, they probably stamp them out in thousands. They're not expensive. So why is this $150? Well, Rainmaker did a review in 2014 when a company called iCuba was doing a crowdfunding program to raise money to produce this thing. And they had the unit called Backtracker. Now Garmin got wind of that and thought, hey, that's a great idea. So they just bought the company, and forget the crowdfunding, they just bought iCuba. And they took what iCuba had developed called the Backtracker, pretty much without any change as far as I can tell, looking at the Backtracker and looking at the first iteration of this rear view radar. And they just put a Garmin name on it. Maybe they tweaked some of the electronics inside. But the system was a little bit clunky compared to what it is now. That's about the history of this thing. That's why it costs so much. They had to buy that company. It doesn't cost much. They'd still probably sell it, at a premium. And that's the way things work. But they didn't have a whole lot of research and development cost involved in this. It was just acquisition cost, pure and simple. But anyway, the problem is this button comes out. It's a piece of crap design. Now, the thing is, I know how to fix it when it comes out again. It's already come out twice. It's going to come out again. You got to press and hold. There's a lot of pressure, and it's quite thin along here. So when this thing came out, it came out in one piece and left a perfectly oval opening there. Underneath there is the switch. It kind of looks like this. It sticks up, and you press this, it depresses the switch. Press and hold 2 seconds on, press and hold 2 seconds off. Let go of the button, the switch comes back up. This thing covers that switch, and the bottom of that button presses the top of that switch. It's no more difficult to understand than that. Anyway, this piece here is an easy fix for this if Garmin wanted to do it. First of all, you could make this a little bit thicker. That would really help. Or you could make this a two-piece fitting. The band that covers around here that helps create the waterproof IPX7 rating, and then a separate button. Now, what I did to solve the problem when that came out so I could still use it is I took one of these little things. It's nothing but a typical rubber plug that goes in on top of your top cap of your headset, cover up the hex head screw. And you can see how that would work. I mean, there's a perfect little stub on the bottom of that fits into the hex opening on that bolt. And there, I had several of these, and there are a couple different designs. This one here is a little bit bigger diameter than this, and that's not a big deal. But the stub, this rubber piece that protrudes and fills that hole in the hex bolt, is a little bit longer. Now, that might not make a difference, or it might make a difference, because the top of that switch is right under the opening in the case. It's maybe a millimeter, 1.5 millimeter below the surface of the case underneath this rubber strap. So if that stub on the one is a little bit too long, it's when you fit it in there, it's going to be pressing on the switch all the time, which you don't want that, but that would be an easy fix. You just take a razor blade and shave off a tiny edge there. But the idea is that fits in that hole when that piece comes out perfectly. And what's beneficial is its diameter is big enough to overlap that hole on all edges, so that when you're pressing it, you're not putting all of that force right on the edge of this button here. When you press it, you're distributing the force out around here where there's solid material underneath. There's no solid material under here. So eventually that just craps out and you have a hole in here. Now you can fix it with this, and this is going to crap out again, I know for sure. And I'm going to fix it with this. All I have to do is take a little bit of adhesive on this edge, put it on there, and I'll put a piece of silicone self-fusing tape on there to tighten it down and let it sit for overnight, and it'll be good to go forever. Now, Garmin could have manufactured this in two pieces, so a better button, what you actually touch, something like this, is part of that. But that would have been more complicated, I guess, two-piece construction, and then you have to assemble it. This thing here is a little bit elastic, is my guess, and they put some glue underneath it. They just stretch it, fit it around there, and it fits in place, and it snugs right up to this edge here. It overlaps this edge a little bit. Garmin RBR 315. What's inside? Bluetooth module, a USB port, two electronic circuit boards, one of which is a radar, one with the main electronics. This thing will, pair with your computer head, pair with your mobile phone on the front stem of your bike. So there's all of that stuff in here. But the other one that they bought, when they bought this, basically did the same thing, but it was a bit more rustic pairing to the front end. It had a separate device. All Garmin did is say, we're going to get rid of that device because we can make it pair to a mobile phone or make it pair to one of our computers. That was their genius, and good thing for it. It's a good item. But anyway, that's the fix. One of these things glued in place when that thing comes out. Now this thing can be taken off, this band. It can be taken off. I got it loose a little bit. And this thing can be pried off. So the other thing is, when the battery peters out on this, and it will eventually, assuming you don't fuck it up when that goes away first, because that's going to break a whole lot earlier than the battery is going to die. But you can buy replacement batteries and put it in there. The other thing that might even be possible is, instead of plugging that battery that they designed to fit in here, which only has a certain amount of capacity and power, recharge rate and all of that, you could take the wires that are plugged into the circuit board, clip them off, put a little hole here and pull the wires out, have a connector and plug it into a external battery that has a whole lot more power and life to it, you could fit that battery on your seat post or stick it up into your saddlebag or something for that matter. You could figure it out. Anyway, you can replace the battery, but you're going to have to hunt around for it. You can replace the USB. You can replace probably even the circuit boards. It's cheap stuff. It wouldn't cost much. Anyway, there you go. That's my little follow-up. I hope you enjoyed it.